Deep beneath Westminster, the war rooms are unusually still. September 25, 1944. For the first time in 5 years, the constant tension has eased, just a little. Winston Churchill stands alone at the great map table, studying France. The Allied columns are driving east. The German frontier no longer feels like a distant dream. General Hastings Ismay enters quietly. Together they study Holland, where Operation Market Garden has been unfolding for 8 days. Field Marshal Montgomery's lightning strike through the Netherlands. Airborne troops seizing bridges while armored forces race north to cross the Rhine and break into Germany. The reports have been unclear, but Montgomery has been confident, as always. The door opens. An aide steps in, pale and shaken, carrying a folder stamped Urgent Market Garden Eyes Only. Churchill takes it without a word. His expression hardens as he reads. The teacup freezes halfway to his lips, then slowly lowers to the table. How many? His voice is barely audible. The aide swallows. Approximately 10,000 casualties, sir. 1st Airborne Division. Arnhem. The bridge couldn't be held. They've evacuated what's left of them. Churchill doesn't move. His eyes stay locked on the paper. 10,000 British casualties. 9 days. 1 bridge. An operation meant to end the war, now one of the bloodiest Allied failures since D-Day. He looks up at Ismay. Where is General Patton? Ismay points to the map. Deep in eastern France near the German border. 3rd Army took Nancy 4 days ago. They're advancing east. Churchill studies the map. Montgomery stalled in the north, Patton driving forward 200 miles to the south. He places the folder on the table with a dull, heavy sound. Get me the fuel allocation reports, Montgomery's and Patton's. I want to know exactly what we gave them. The reports arrive within 20 minutes. Churchill spreads them across the table. The figures are brutal and unarguable. Operation Market Garden consumed 1,400 tons of fuel every single day. Every truck, every gallon, every spare drop diverted north to support the largest airborne operation in history. The objective was simple on paper: seize the bridges, cross the Rhine at Arnhem, punch into Germany's industrial heartland, end the war by Christmas. On September 17th, the British 1st Airborne Division dropped near Arnhem with orders to hold the bridge for 48 hours until ground forces arrived. They waited. The ground forces never came. German resistance was far stronger than intelligence predicted. 2 veteran SS Panzer divisions were refitting just outside Arnhem. Battle-hardened, experienced, deadly. For 9 days, British paratroopers fought, surrounded, cut off, outnumbered, ammunition dwindling. Medical supplies gone, no relief in sight. On the night of September 25th, the survivors slipped back across the Rhine under fire. Of the 10,000 men who landed at Arnhem, barely 2,000 escaped. Total casualties, over 10,000. Territory gained, 64 miles into Holland. Strategic objectives achieved, 0. The Arnhem Bridge remained firmly in German hands. Churchill turns to the second report. In those same 9 days, General George Patton's 3rd Army received 700 tons of fuel per day, exactly half of Montgomery's allocation. Yet 200 miles south, Patton kept moving, grinding forward through Lorraine toward Germany. No special privileges, no priority pipelines. The difference was written in blood and territory. While Market Garden unraveled in the north, Patton's 3rd Army smashed through 12 fortified cities. They forced crossings over 3 major rivers: the Moselle, the Meurthe, the Mortagne. 60 miles gained, 45,000 German soldiers captured, an estimated 55,000 enemy casualties inflicted. 3rd Army losses, roughly 2,100. Churchill reads the figures once. Then again, he removes his glasses, rubs his eyes, replaces them. Pug, tell me I'm misunderstanding this. Ismay hesitates. Sir, I personally verified the numbers. 3 independent sources. Then say it out loud. Ismay nods. Montgomery received 1,400 tons of fuel per day, advanced 64 miles in 9 days, suffered 10,000 casualties, achieved none of his strategic objectives. He pauses. Patton received 700 tons per day, half the fuel, advanced 60 miles while forcing 3 major river crossings, capturing 12 cities, approximately 2,000 casualties, 45,000 prisoners. And as of this morning, 3rd Army is less than 20 miles from the German border near Saarbrücken. Churchill walks to the wall map. One finger traces the thick red supply lines feeding Montgomery in the north. Every truck, every rail car, every gallon diverted to Market Garden. Then his finger drifts south, where Patton's advance snakes forward on thin, strained logistics. Operating on half rations and still winning. His voice is too calm. Get me General Eisenhower. Immediately. At Supreme Headquarters in Versailles, Eisenhower is in a staff meeting when an aide whispers that the Prime Minister is on the line. He knows at once this will not be friendly. "Good morning, Prime Minister." Churchill's voice is clipped, formal. "I need you to explain something to me, General. I'll need to explain it to Parliament within 48 hours, so let's be precise." "Of course, sir. Why did we authorize an operation that consumed our entire logistical capacity and delivered the single bloodiest Allied week since D-Day?" Eisenhower chooses his words carefully. "Prime Minister, Market Garden was a calculated risk. Field Marshal Montgomery believed, and our intelligence suggested, that German resistance in the north was collapsing. The plan was to exploit that weakness with speed and airborne surprise. I know the plan, Ike. I attended the briefings. What I want to know is why General Patton is capturing German cities with half the fuel while Montgomery is losing men with all of it. Patton's sector faces lighter opposition. The Saar region isn't as heavily defended as the Rhine crossings. Do not insult my intelligence. 45,000 prisoners is not light opposition. Those are divisions. Divisions that could have reinforced Arnhem. Patton is destroying German combat power. Montgomery lost an entire airborne division trying to seize one bridge. Winston, I understand your frustration. Do you? Because what I see is this. Montgomery received absolute priority and produced a catastrophe. Patton received half and is knocking on Germany's door. Explain the logic." There's a long sigh. Montgomery has requested a meeting. He believes that with renewed resources, a concentrated thrust toward the Ruhr, Churchill's voice rises. "Here is what I want you to tell Field Marshal Montgomery. The Prime Minister would very much like to understand how the general who demanded absolute priority for 9 days delivered absolute disaster. Can you convey that message?" Winston, publicly attacking Montgomery risks fracturing Allied unity. Unity didn't save those paratroopers at Arnhem, and unity doesn't win wars. Results do. Patton gets results. Why are we punishing him for Montgomery's failures? I'm not punishing anyone. I'm holding a coalition together. Then hold it together with competence, not politics. I'll be in France next week. I want to tour both sectors, Montgomery's and Patton's. I want to see exactly where our resources went. The line goes dead. Within 24 hours, the story breaks. The Daily Telegraph leads with a brutal headline. RNH, 10,000 casualties in failed Rhine crossing. By noon, Fleet Street is swarming. By evening, reporters have the fuel allocation numbers. The questions come fast and vicious. Why was Montgomery given everything while Patton was starved? Why did the Prime Minister approve an operation that cost 10,000 lives for nothing? Labour MPs begin drafting parliamentary challenges. Churchill's office receives over 300 letters in 48 hours. Mothers, wives, sisters asking why their sons died for Montgomery's ambition, why reports of German tanks were ignored, why British forces are bleeding while Americans are winning. At Versailles, Eisenhower's staff shifts into crisis mode. On September 28th, Montgomery arrives demanding a private meeting. It lasts 3 hours. Voices rise behind closed doors. He blames the weather, faulty intelligence, unexpected German armor, the Polish paratroopers dropped in the wrong place. When Montgomery finally leaves, rigid posture, clenched jaw, General Walter Bedell Smith enters Eisenhower's office. How bad? He wants another offensive, full resources, single thrust toward the Ruhr. Says Market Garden failed because we didn't give him enough. Smith stares. He lost 10,000 men with absolute priority, and he wants more? He also says Patton's success is irrelevant, claims the Saar isn't strategically important. Smith shakes his head. George took 45,000 prisoners. That's not irrelevant. That's devastating. Meanwhile, General Omar Bradley submits a formal logistics request to headquarters. It's polite, professional, carefully worded. But everyone understands exactly what it says. Give Third Army the fuel, and they can reach the Rhine within 10 days. The final sentence becomes legend inside Allied headquarters. We are winning a war with our hands tied, while others are losing it with both hands free. Bradley never names Montgomery. He doesn't. October 1st. Winston Churchill arrives in France without warning, landing at Versailles and going straight to Eisenhower's headquarters. No speeches, no press. British and American generals gather uneasily. Churchill enters carrying a thick report stamped with the War Office seal. He places it on the table with a dull thud. Gentlemen, I've had my staff prepare a comparative analysis of operations conducted between September 17th and 25th. I thought it might be clarifying. He opens to a chart. 2 columns side by side. Operation Market Garden, 1,400 tons of fuel per day, 10,000 casualties, 0 cities captured, 0 rivers crossed, 0 strategic objectives achieved, 3,200 enemy prisoners, 64 miles gained, final position 1 bridge short of the goal. Third Army operations, 700 tons per day, 2,100 casualties, 12 cities captured, 3 rivers crossed, Siegfried Line breached, 45,000 prisoners, 60 miles gained, final position at the German border. Churchill looks around the room. British officers stare at the table, American officers stare at the walls. I have one question and I want an honest answer. How is this possible? Silence. We gave Montgomery everything. Every priority, every resource. And George Patton? With half the fuel produced results that make Market Garden look like a training exercise gone wrong. Eisenhower clears his throat. Prime Minister, the operational contexts were different. Montgomery faced entrenched SS formations. So did Patton, the 17th SS Panzergrenadier Division at Nancy. He destroyed it in 3 days. The terrain in Holland favors armor, flat ground, and Patton crossed 3 rivers and fought through the Vosges foothills. No, Ike, I do not accept terrain as the explanation. A British general speaks carefully. Prime Minister, Field Marshal Montgomery's objective was more ambitious. A single thrust deep into enemy territory requires competence. Churchill closes the report, which brings me to my next point. Tomorrow I will visit the Market Garden battlefield with Field Marshal Montgomery. After that, I will visit General Patton's sector. I suspect the contrast will be educational. The Netherlands, October 2nd. Churchill's motorcade arrives at what had been the staging area for Market Garden. Shattered gliders lie broken in open fields, burned-out vehicles clog the roadsides. Temporary graves, marked by helmets and rifles, stand in precise, heartbreaking rows. Field Marshal Montgomery greets Churchill, immaculate uniform, perfect posture, tight jaw. Prime Minister, I'm glad you could come. Once you see the situation firsthand, I believe you'll understand the difficulties we faced. Churchill says nothing. He gestures toward the nearest jeep. Show me. They drive north along the narrow highway British armor was supposed to race up toward Arnhem. The troops call it Hell's Highway now. Wrecked tanks line the road. Shell craters scar the asphalt. Bridges lie twisted and half-repaired. Montgomery talks as they drive. The intelligence failure was severe, Prime Minister. We had no confirmed reports of SS Panzer divisions in the area. You were warned. Dutch resistance reported German armor. You dismissed it. Montgomery stiffens. The intelligence was inconclusive. Resistance reports are often exaggerated. Churchill turns to face him. 4,500 men of the 1st Airborne Division are dead or captured because you decided inconclusive wasn't worth considering. Prime Minister, with respect, command decisions in combat require... I'm not interested in lectures on command, Bernard. I'm interested in why you made the wrong ones. The convoy stops. Ahead stands the Nijmegen Bridge, the furthest point Market Garden ever reached. The bridge to Arnhem lies beyond it, still in German hands. American paratroopers of the 82nd Airborne captured Nijmegen, crossing the Wall River in flimsy canvas boats, paddling straight into machine gun fire. Many never made it across, but they took the bridge. Churchill stands staring north. 10 miles away through the haze lies Arnhem, the bridge too far. This is where we held, Montgomery says carefully. Churchill turns. If the 1st Airborne could have held Arnhem one more day, they held for 9. Surrounded by SS Panzer divisions, they held longer than anyone believed possible. Churchill lets the words hang. The failure wasn't theirs. It was yours. Montgomery stiffens. Prime Minister, I resent. I'm not finished. Yesterday I visited Nancy. Do you know what I saw there? A city captured 4 days ago by General Patton, with 700 tons of fuel per day, half of what you had. The city was intact. Civilians were returning. Engineers were already repairing infrastructure. And when I asked Patton about casualties, do you know what he said? Montgomery's jaw tightens. He said, "Acceptable, Mr. Prime Minister. We keep moving, and they can't hurt us." Then he showed me his maps. 12 cities, 3 rivers, 45,000 prisoners. All in the same week you lost 10,000 men for a bridge you didn't capture. The situations are not comparable, Montgomery snaps. You're right, they're not. Because Patton won, and you lost. That evening, Churchill insists on visiting Arnhem itself. The town is still partially under German control, so they stop on the southern bank of the Rhine. Across the water, the Arnhem Bridge stands intact, German vehicles moving across it freely. British paratroopers fought 9 days to hold the northern end. They were evacuated 1 week earlier. Churchill stares across the river in silence. Finally, he speaks. They're calling it a bridge too far. No reply. I'm starting to think it wasn't the bridge that was too far. It was the ambition, without the ability to match it. They returned to temporary headquarters near Eindhoven. Maps everywhere. Eisenhower, Ismay, senior staff officers. The tension is suffocating. Churchill sits, lights a cigar, looks directly at Montgomery. Bernard, I want an honest answer. Why did Market Garden fail while Patton succeeded? As I've explained, the situations are not comparable. I faced 2 SS Panzer divisions that intelligence failed to identify. Patton faced disorganized rearguard units. 45,000 prisoners. In 1 week. Were those rearguards simply polite enough to surrender? Or did Patton have to defeat actual German divisions? Montgomery flushes, that's discuss intelligence. You were warned about German armor near Arnhem, Dutch resistance, aerial reconnaissance, you dismissed it. Why? The intelligence was inconclusive. And you made a command decision based on that? To do what exactly? Lose an entire airborne division? The room goes silent. That is an insulting oversimplification, Montgomery says. Barely controlled. Then simplify it for me. You had priority. You had supply. You had elite troops. Total air superiority. Every advantage. Patton had half your fuel and won battles every single day. So simplify it, Field Marshal. Why did you fail? I did not fail. We gained territory. We drew German forces north. We prevented a counteroffensive. You lost 10,000 men for a bridge you don't hold, a river you didn't cross, an objective you didn't achieve. And while you were losing them, Patton was liberating cities and capturing prisoners by the tens of thousands. Churchill exhales slowly. Next week, I must explain this to Parliament. And frankly, Bernard, I am struggling to do so without making you appear incompetent. Gentlemen, this isn't helping. Eisenhower interjects. I'm not assigning blame, I'm evaluating. Montgomery stands abruptly. If the Prime Minister believes I'm unfit for command, sit down, Bernard. I'm not finished. Montgomery sits. Every officer avoids eye contact. Churchill takes one last pull on his cigar. Here is what I will tell Parliament. Market Garden was a bold gamble, and it failed. Wars are not won by gambling. They are won by commanders who deliver results with the resources available, not by those who demand everything and deliver condolences. George Patton is such a commander. You are not. The silence is crushing. Churchill pauses at the tent entrance. One more thing. General Bradley has requested increased fuel for Third Army. I will recommend that it be approved. And he leaves. The fallout reshapes the war. Montgomery keeps his command. Firing him would cause a British political crisis, but his influence is broken. His single-thrust strategy is abandoned permanently. Eisenhower's broad front advance becomes official policy. Within a week, Patton receives more fuel. By mid-October, Third Army advances another 40 miles. By November, they're at the German border preparing to assault the Siegfried Line. Montgomery spends October and November clearing the Scheldt to open Antwerp. Vital, necessary, but unglamorous. The headlines belong to Patton. Churchill never publicly humiliates Montgomery in Parliament. On October 10th, he praises the courage of the Arnhem paratroopers, acknowledges the difficulty of the operation, then adds almost casually, "One cannot help but observe that in modern war, boldness must be matched with speed and adaptability. Some commanders possess this naturally. Others do not." Everyone knows who he means. In private, Churchill is less restrained. Patton moves like lightning. Montgomery plans like a lawyer and executes like a clerk. December 1944. Hitler launches his final gamble, the Battle of the Bulge. Bastogne is surrounded. Eisenhower asks who can relieve it. Montgomery says he'll need 3 weeks to prepare. Patton studies the map. "I can be there in 48 hours. "That's impossible," Eisenhower says. "You'd have to turn your entire army 90 degrees in winter." 48 hours, Patton repeats. He does it. Third Army pivots, advances through snow and ice, and reaches Bastogne in 72 hours, breaking the siege. Montgomery's counteroffensive begins 3 weeks later. Churchill writes to his wife, "Patton has done it again. Monty is still planning." History renders its verdict. Market Garden versus Third Army becomes a permanent case study, not about resources, but about leadership. Montgomery had everything. Patton had half. One failed, one succeeded. Churchill understood the difference, and once he did, Allied command and the war itself changed forever.